All right, so I am going to do a very quick demo of how to make a ceviche. And as I mentioned in class, a ceviche is more of a technique than a recipe. What we're going to be doing is taking some scallops, I have some nice scallops here, and marinating them in lime juice, some fresh squeezed lime juice. What the lime juice is going to do is going to denature the proteins and essentially cook the meat, but in an acidic medium rather than in a temperature medium. And many different types of ceviche, shrimp, different kinds of fish. Different countries have different variations. It's originally probably from Peru, where it was used, they use potatoes and corn and basically whatever vegetables you have available to make a nice hearty salad. Other variations would be scallops or whitefish. You could use lemon juice, passion fruit juice, just anything acidic to kind of cook the meat. And then the flavorings are basically whatever you want. Generally, I have here I have some tomato, I have some red bell pepper. The green is a jalapeno. There's some red onions underneath there. Some chopped up cucumber. You could do bigger chunks. I just do fine cuts because that's kind of what my knife just sort of naturally does at this point in cooking. But if they're big chunks, that's perfectly fine as well. What I'm going to start out with is I'm going to take the scallops. Let me show you a scallop. With scallops, when you have these scallops that are nice and they aren't soaked in anything, you can tell because they're still lightly pink. Some scallops are going to have this little connector there. This is a connective tissue, and I want to remove that because that, even as it sits in the acid, tends to be very chewy. It's where the muscle kind of connects to the shell on the side, and I want to pull that off. I pull that off even when I'm cooking, but some of them aren't going to have it, and that's perfectly fine. Like here, and then those I'm not going to use. Some people don't pull it off. I find it to be really tough. And it just has a nicer texture when it's knocked in. I think that's fine. I think that's plenty. I will save these to cook tomorrow. So what I'm going to do, you could cut these into dice. If you have fish, you can cut them into dice. You can cut them into big chunks, depending on whether you want it to look really nice and, I don't know, kind of rustic would be sort of larger chunks, and a little bit more fancy, a little extra would be nice smaller chunks. I'm actually going to cut them through sort of the width like that. So I still end up with these nice rounds. They're just very thin, and that way they will marinate relatively quickly. You want this to sit in for about 45 minutes or so. And if you threw a whole scallop in, it would take, the outside would be really acidic and nicely done, and then the inside would still be raw. But I'm going to cut these, generally try to get the same length, same width. These nice small ones, I can just cut into two, should be fine. This one's kind of falling apart, that's totally okay. It'll all get eaten. And then I'm going to marinate the fish first. Look how nice and pink on the inside that is. That's beautiful. I'm going to drop these into the lime juice. And then into the lime juice, I'm going to wash off my hands. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt. Not too much. And a little bit of pepper. Nice black pepper. And then I'm going to stir them up so everything gets exposed to that lime juice. And I'm going to put this in the refrigerator. I'm going to let it sit for about 45 minutes. These I'm going to add, you could add these in at the beginning, but I like to leave them more towards the end so they stay nice and crunchy. The cilantro I definitely will add in at the very last minute, because if I put the cilantro in now, it will be it'll get brown. And again, you could. It'll make the flavor a little bit more pervasive, but in terms of the aesthetics, acid changes the chlorophyll, and that will make them, it just looks a little nicer when it's added at the very last second. So I'm gonna let this marinate, then we will finish it off. All right, so after about 30 minutes or so, you can see that the scallops are getting nice and getting darker white around the edges. They feel a little more rigid. They're not as kind of squishy as they were. That shows that the lime juice, the acidity is doing what it's supposed to do. So what I'm gonna do at this point is I'm gonna put in all of my garnishes. So all the flavors can kind of marry, and stir that up. I will admit I have avocado, but I bought the avocado and it didn't soften up in time. So I'm not gonna use the avocado, which makes me sad, but not that sad. And then I'm gonna put this back in. I wanna make sure the scallops are all really into underneath the lime juice so they do the marinating they need to do. Beautiful colors. And again, I'm leaving the cilantro for the very last bit because that I don't want to turn color. There we go. I'll let that sit for about another 20 minutes or so, and then I'll show you how we can plate that up. All right, so we are going to finish up our ceviche. That has been marinating now for probably a total of an hour, I would say. It's looking really good. And again, think of this more as a technique than a recipe. Put in what you want. This would be really great with avocado if the avocado was better. Little chunks of potatoes. I'd do that, I think, more with fish than I would with the scallops, but yeah, that's up to you. Again, I'm gonna put in some fresh cilantro. Nice. And then I'm gonna take some lime zest. There's a bunch of lime juice, but I want to get some zest in there as well. Awesome. And then there's so many different ways you could do this. You could serve this, I don't know, in a big bowl and have people serve themselves as sort of a appetizer. I'll show you two different platings. I've got this plate right here. I'll scoop some of the scallops in. You get a lot of the juice. Because that juice, you know, if you like, lime juice is quite delicious. I feel like a really sort of utilitarian way to kind of serve it as an appetizer, and people can scoop some up with their corn chips. You could actually put this right on top of a corn. I don't have a corn tortilla at the moment, so I can't do that. But you could put this, you could actually make a taco out of this if you used fish. And I'll show you a way we could do this and be totally super extra. Let's take some of the really pretty circles. Just kind of lie them out. This is what I would do if I was having guests over that I liked, or was doing it in the restaurant or something. You can kind of pile some up, get some of that really good vegetables, kind of sprinkle them on top. And then let's put a little drizzling of some oil right over it to kind of carry the flavors. And I think also nice little dripping of some lime zest. That looks beautiful. So there we go. You can serve it. Super, super fancy ceviche. Super, super rustic ceviche. Get some of the corn tortillas in there. I gotta get a better cameraman. There we go. Those look great. I'm gonna enjoy both of them right now, and have a great weekend.